Hey guys, welcome back to Zamora Models, and today we're going to be doing our first video segment of building your vintage Dairy Queen kit from Walthers. Couple side notes about this kit. One thing that is going to be covered in this video is emphasis on building your main structure. There will be other segments as far as painting and super detail in this kit, so definitely hit the like, subscribe, and turn on the notifications so you can get your notification of when the next segment comes out. Another tidbit, I am not going to be using the included plastic windows that come with the kit. We'll repurpose those, do something else with them, make them into something else. We're going to use sheet styrene in that upcoming video for this building. One final side note is I will not be installing the roof sign that is pre-assembled, pre-lettered. That'll be done at the very end as a final detail part, so I'm going to put that aside for now. And upon reading the instructions of the kit, I believe I am missing the signs and decals for this building, as it's talked separately in the instructions. However, I don't have any. Also on the main building spur, you'll notice that there is a secondary optional sign for a modern logo for Dairy Queen, but it is not graphic and not printed. So check back with me later, hopefully I can get a hold of some of those, and if not, we'll go from there. Tools that I'm going to be using for this project are some sprue cutters, a good set of files. In this case I have my flat file out, and I also have a file polisher. Not sure how well I'm going to use that yet, but it's out just in case. As always with any kit building, a good hobby knife. I have multiple here. This one looks like it's seen better days. Your CA, and then of course all of our parts out. And some people use clamps for this building because it's squared. I'm going to be using a rubber band. And if you're following me on this, I'm going to build the building exactly as it is on the box art. I'm not going to kit bash or modify this kit minus some detail work. So let's dive into this kit here. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to pop off the main building walls. On our sprue, we have our rear door, our side building, which is the side that's shown on the box art here. The opposite side building, you identify that by having two small windows in the top left. An interior wall, as well as our front door. This is the sign that I was talking about is included, but there's no graphics for the sign. I'm going to leave that on the spur for the time being. I'm going to go ahead and build mine with the pre-made vintage Dairy Queen sign as is on the box art. So I'm going to take my sprue cutter. I'm just going to clip as close as I can flat in against the building. When you're snipping these off, you want to go a little gentle with it. You don't want to break the plastic, but you also don't want to stress the sprue. If you stress the sprue, you can sometimes break parts off the building or get parts that you don't mean to. Once I get the building off here, or the wall segment that I want, I'm going to go ahead and grab my file. Again, this is a flat file. I'm just going to take my building, and I'm going to run my flat file over the edge there, trying to keep it level with the roof line. That way when I put my roof on, my roof doesn't come up uneven. I'm going to try to show you this in different angles here. And I'll just gently go over everywhere that there is a sprue, or anywhere that there's any flash from the molding process. This kit, I did notice, had a lot of flash on the windows. See, that might just be because I got a kit towards the end of the mold life. So you might need to do a little bit of cleanup on it, but don't worry, it's not too much here. You can see how quick I'm going through this. I need to put a little bit more pressure on this one. You never want to file too much off of these buildings. Make your brickwork and foundation or other parts not line up correctly. especially on a building like this where it's a cinder block construction. You can see the brick detail on there. Make your bricks not look correct, makes the building oddly shaped visually. If you're also going to put lighting in this, it'll leave room for the light to come out. And that's not something that you're going to want. Also going to want to flip over on the inside. I've got this nice tab sticking up here from the injection molding process. This tab right here. I'm going to go ahead and snip that off. I'm also going to do a little bit of cleanup work. Let me see if I can get it to show you here. Right down here in this bottom corner, you can see a little black smudge. That's from the injection molding machine pushing the part out of the mold. So we're going to clean that up as well, so that way when we put interiors in here and lighting, there won't be any shadows casting around. One nice feature about this kit that Walthers did do on the floor is they included a hole so you can run your lights through it. The interior wall also goes to minimize the space of lighting that you have to do. Really focuses it just on the large front windows and the kitchen area, not necessarily the back portion of the restaurant. Okay, so the last section that we're going to focus on here to finish up this wall section is we're going to check the window seals here. A little hard to see in the camera here, but I got a little bit of flash from the injection molding process, so we're going to clean that up a bit. I'm going to start by using my flat file and just kind of run it over the window ledge. Again, keep the file flat and level with the building and the window frame. That way you don't take too much off in the wrong area. And this doesn't take too much, just a quick little run by. The bottom has a lot here, so give me a bit to get that nice and smooth. Now these window frames do seem a little thicker than what I believe to be to scale, but you can see the building wobbling in here. They're standing up pretty well to being refined for our final look that we're trying to achieve. There's a couple different ways you can do the windows on this. You can paint them black, silver. Mine are going to be painted black. That's just what I'm used to seeing in my local Dairy Queens of this style. But you can choose to paint yours whichever color. I'm going to put the file down really quick. I have this refining file, more like a polisher. Just squeeze the end of this, available at Micro Mark. Slide the end loop off here. These are replaceable, they have different ones. And then what I can do with this is I can put my part on there, slip this back on, and now I can go through and polish up the file work that I just did. Puts a little bit of pressure, not too much. It's not going to take a lot of the big stuff off, but it will help refine the edges, give a nice finished surface. This tool wasn't too much expensive. I don't remember exactly how much I paid for it. I got at a swap meet, but I've been happy with it so far. You can also get these sanding strips separately without the tool. Again, also available from Micro Mark. They come in different coarseness and for different purposes. Okay guys, so that makes our wall sections all nicely taken out, cleaned up, deburred, deflashed, ready to go. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pop off the floor as well as the roof. The roof I'm not going to work with yet. I'm just going to pop it off the spur. That way we can clean up the edges so I can paint it before putting the details on. But the details will get put on last, and the details and the roof will be painted separately before being assembled. The floor base, I'm going to use the tabs. This kit includes a slotted tab building method. As I build this, I'm not going to glue the building to the floor until the very end, because I'm going to paint the floor a concrete color. That way, as you can see in our box art, we will have the concrete walkway for the patrons of our restaurant. That's why the building tabs are recessed within the foundation of the building. And as mentioned earlier, here is the pre-drilled hole provided by Walthers for you to run your lighting wires through. The air conditioner I will come back to later. These are your air conditioner right here. Because they're so small, I'm going to leave them on the sprue right now. I'm just going to use my sprue cutters, snip this off the sprue. Last piece twisted off, so you might have to clean that up a little bit. Got a bit of a nub right there. I'll just go ahead and scrape that right there like that. Comes right off. The floor I'm not so much worried about if it has a little bit left over. It'll give some weathering, something to give some contrast with. We're going to go ahead and file that one down a bit more. When you're filing, you want to run your finger over it. Make sure you're not filing too much away, but also to make sure that you've got the part flush. Now in a little bit I'm going to grab my brass wire brush and clean my file off. My file's not going to do the job that I want it to do with it having this much filed plastic in it. We'll get this back piece here. And there we go, there's our roof and our floor piece. Now the final pieces that I'm going to take off for this segment of the video are your two freezers as well as your kitchen prep counter. I'm going to leave the roof vents and the window platforms on the sprues for the time being until I'm ready to paint them, just because of how small they are and I'm not going to exactly use them right now. So again, we're going to come up with the flat part of our sprue cutters, put it flat against the building, give it a little bit of pressure. You might have to fidget this around a bit. Remember to not stress the plastic. And these are interior details. They're not going to be too visible at the floor level. I'm not exactly going gentle with them, but I am trying to do a little bit of cleanup so at least they fit flush. There will be no gaps between any of the detail parts. I'm going to do a little bit of work on this one. I didn't cut it flush enough to the plastic with the sprue cutter. There we go. I'll move on to the next one. There we go. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to test fit the pieces onto the building just to see how they're going to go together. Actually, I got this backwards. The windows will go, all of your windows are going to go towards the 3 tabs on the front here. The 3 tabs will be the front of the building, and the hole will be the rear of the building. You can see there's a tab right here that the doors fit between. I'm just going to see how well these fit together, how nice of a joint we can get out of them. One tool that I don't have here that I may or may not be using is the filling putty, or modeling putty, depending on what you call it. That will be done after the building phase, just to seal all of the holes that we have. The buildings on the ends have little nubs. There's a good view of the nubs there. So they just slot and tab between each other. And what I'm looking to see is how well of a corner I get there. I want it to be a nice, sharp, crisp corner. You might have to do some filing and some filling to get those to fit together nicely. Now again, as a note, I'm not going to be gluing this to the floor base right now. I'm only using the floor base to keep the building square during the gluing process, or while the glue cures. Now I'm not having too much luck getting these to sit together temporarily. But it's not exactly designed to do this. I just like to test fit my pieces first. This will be your back wall. Again, the blank wall with only a door, it has no brick detail in it. That goes on the interior wall. And there we have it. It's a little hard to see from your guys' view, but it is put together there. I'm going to grab my rubber band. I have a longer rubber band here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the bottom and the top, give it a twist, and then fold my rubber band over so I get 2 rubber bands. And then I'm going to spread with my fingers, make a square, and hopefully not knock the building over while I put the rubber bands on top. So bear with me while I do this next stage. when you're applying the rubber band, you're going to want to be particularly gentle. You don't want to break any of the windows, and you also don't want to knock it over like I did the first time, but you want the building to come up squared. So now is a good time that we can go through and actually see what our corners will look like. You can see that for the most part our corners came together quite nicely. Again, you might have to sand and fill some of the edges. This one looks a little bit rough. We'll see how that turns out. I will be doing a mortar effect with this building, so the mortar effect might settle into the crack there on that one corner. Again, we'll see how that works out. What I've done is I've just positioned the rubber band to be in the middle. And then I'm going to set it on my base plate. And you can see that it sits perfectly square on the base plate now, which is exactly what we want. So one tool that I forgot to mention earlier that you might want to use, especially on this building now seeing it, is some Insta. Drop your CA on, squirt the Insta on, and it sets the glue pretty quickly, so that way it will hold itself while it finishes curing. Now the CA, use it sparingly. It is a glue that is good for sheet styrene buildings like this. However, it will fog up the clear window and window glazing. This is extra thick that I'm using. It's not going to take very much. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to put this glue right up in the top corners where the tabs are, as well as the bottom corners. Get the other side here. Bottom corners. Again, I just want a little drop. This doesn't take too much to glue on there. A little too much on that back one. Okay, so I'm not going to let that sit on the building floor just yet. We're going to position our door to be facing the front of the building. There is a tabbed slot in here for this. What we're going to do, we're going to line it up. I'm going to line it up to be at floor level, and then we'll glue that in place. Now again, I said I was going to line it up to be at floor level. You can see that there is a little bit of a gap between it and the roof, but there's no gap between it and the floor, so it's when you're looking down at a downward angle at it, the floor will be solid. The roof will hide the gap on the top part for us. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this building sit for a while, so that way the glue can set. We'll set this sideways on there. With CA glue, you're also going to want to use this in a well-ventilated area. It is a little heavy smelling. And as you go around with models, you'll also find it's very good for gluing your fingers to stuff. What I'm going to assemble now is I'm going to assemble the air conditioner unit, which came on the roof and floor sprue. You might see a little bit of time lapse on this. I'm going to repeat the same process I did with the building. The only different thing is I'm not going to wrap a rubber band around it. Now, one thing that I'll also do for you guys is a future video is going to be on super detailing this kit. So there's one step that you can do right now that will help down the road for super detailing. You can see the electrical box for the air conditioner has a molded on pipe coming down. I have a very small diameter. I don't know the size of it off of my head, but brass wire. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to file that pipe off, and I will cut a piece of that brass wire at the last video of this segment and show you guys how to add a actual pipe coming down from there and give it a nice 3D look and a finishing touch. We're just going to keep our file flat and run it across. Check it frequently. You don't want to go too far with it. And also keep watching this video, because at the end I'm going to do one more step that will set up a very nice super detailing feature, which will be done at this step, or start at this step and finished at the end. Okay guys, the radiator fan goes on the roof or the top of the air conditioner. Doesn't look like I have that fully flat, so let me do another quick sanding of this with the file. There we go. So we will lay that part flat. Move it back to where you guys can see it there. Get our glue ready. Our insta set ready. And then the grills are the sides. Let me see if I can get that where you can see the grill. There we go. So these will be both sides. There's two of these. These will be your long sides, and they have the slotted inserts for the pieces on there. We're going to do the top first. Drop a glue on that. Do I want it to go this way? Alright, so I got our first piece set. We're going to grab our second roof, or our second grill piece, if I don't throw it on the floor. So this is our second grill piece. I'm going to repeat the process with this. You're going to want to take your time with this to get it squared. You can see this one wall is not wanting to work with me here. So what I can do is go put a drop of CA in there. Make sure I'm square where I want it. And then a squirt of the Insta. Doesn't take too much Insta. It has a bit of a unique smell to it. But you can see now that that's holding quite nicely. So this is the piece that has the electrical box on it. Okay, and as you can see, I didn't really get that square. There's a lot of harsh edges. We'll do some filing work after this is set, some putty work, and really clean up those edges there. Now for your floor, there's going to be two pieces that you can use. So I'm just going to test fit these, see which one fits best. That looks like it fits perfectly in there. We'll drop a bit of glue. We'll put glue on all four corners. And after our glue's on all four corners, we will put in the final piece. Now what we'll do is, if anything's showing in there, we're going to give a little CA on the end of that. Or not CA, a little Insta. So I didn't put any glue on the top of this, so I'm going to set this upside down to dry. And we will recover our bottle of glue as well as our Insta. And there is our almost ready to go, assembled but not finished air conditioner. I'm going to move our building over to our roof section, and I'm going to grab our floor. So I have a floor, and I've also grabbed a number 11 xacto blade. And I still got some flash on here. A little more than what I want. I'm going to clean that up a little bit. Always make sure to cut away from yourself. These hobby knives are very sharp. Done the due diligence of cutting myself a few times to learn that lesson. Okay, so everything outside of the raised rail is going to be the exterior sidewalk. So what I'm going to do is, this is going to be the front of the building. I'm going to cut some lines, some scores, very gently. I'm going to go in different angles. I'm going to have different branches that come off. I'm going to do that in various spots. Across the entire floor here. You can go deep on some, shallow on others. But what this is going to do is once we put the paint down and then we do a layer of weathering over this, the weathering will seep into the cracks or these score marks that we're making, and it'll show through the painted sidewalk as cracks in the sidewalk. Now another thing that you can do, I'm not going to do it on this kit, but you can take your scale ruler and measure out the concrete blocks. I'm not going to do that on this kit, but I am going to do the fracture lines. I'm going to do these in all different directions throughout the entire sidewalk. Let's see if I can't give you a close-up of the score marks there that I'm making. Really just any random way that the sidewalk could give a little fracture or a break is all that I'm doing here. Hey guys, welcome back to Zamora Models channel. This is a second episode of building your Walthers Vintage Dairy Queen in HL scale. I'm Nick and I'm joined here today with Kristen, who is manning the camera for me. I'm going to follow up from the first video of this series. I mentioned that I was missing the window signs and decals for the building. I followed up with Walthers, and it appears that they had a miscommunication with the print shop. So on the box, I'll zoom in here, it says it has printed paper window signs, and that's also pointed out in the instructions of this kit. However, that is not the case. So if you're looking for those or you think that they're missing, they were supposed to pull that off of the box art, and unfortunately the packages were shipped with it still on there. But as you saw in the first video, we do have the nice roof sign that is done, so we'll just have to make do with that. Following up from last video, we have our building, which is now dried. I let this cure overnight from the other video with the rubber bands wrapped around it. And now we're going to do a little bit of touch-up work on this today, as well as on our air conditioner. You can see the seams on this air conditioner have a few gaps, and I want to get rid of those gaps. I want to make this look like one solid piece of metal. So to work on that today, we're going to be using an assortment of hobby knives. I'm going to use this chisel blade. I usually have a putty applying tool and sculpting tool, but I can't find it, so that's why I'm using this hobby knife. This is white hobby putty. It's designed for use on plastic models as well as various other models, and it is vapor harmful, so you're going to want to use this in a well ventilated area, and you might find the odor a little bit offensive. Got my flat file out again. Might use a multitude of files, so I have my whole set here just in case. And because this is putty and it'll sand off almost, I have just a standard wire brush that I'm going to use to clean the file with. And also from the last video, my little precision sander tool here. So what we're going to do is I'm going to start off with the building. I'm going to start from the front. We're going to zoom in right here to the corner. I'm going to get a good angle. Right on my thumb here you can see the edge of the building is sticking out a little at the top. Do we have a good view on that on the camera?
Yes, we do.
Okay. So I want to take that off. I want to make it a nice 90-degree corner. I'm just going to put my file flat with the front of the building. And then I'm going to file that back, wrapping around the building here. And then when I get to the end, I'll do the same thing on the other end. I'm being a little bit gentle on this. I don't want to take too much because I don't want to round the corner. I want it to be a nice tight corner. There's also going to be lights in here, so I don't want to break any of the edging away because I don't want the light to shine through. Going to get a little bit of the bottom here. We're going to be adding filler putty to the bottom. There's a little bit of a gap there. I'm not trying to be rough with the building, so I'm going a little bit gentle with it, especially on this joint. I've already popped it loose. So in a little bit here you'll see me pop the CA back out to re-tack that back into place. Again, with the CA, with the clear sheet styrene windows, you don't want to use a whole bunch because it will fog up the windows. There we go. I'm just going to repeat that process all the way around the building until all the joints are nice and square. Right up here, and that should do it for filing the corners.
How much pressure are you using?
I'm using very little pressure. I don't want too much of the CA glue because of its tendency to fog the windows. So it's really just tacked in rather than being liberally applied. So a little pressure, but going over a few times and just letting it gradually work its way down is sometimes best. And you'll find that to be the trick with working with the windows. I know you guys didn't see it too much in the first video because of time-lapsing and editing of stuff out. But that whole video took me over an hour of just refining these windows down to make sure that I don't break the windows. I'll give this a little jiggle if I can get you guys to see it. You can see that a little jiggle, I'm shaking the entire front half of the building. So it doesn't take much to break the thin plastic. Now something that's a little more sturdy is this air conditioner unit. You guys remember this? This is the one that I took that pipe off of because I'm going to actually add a piece of brass tubing to act as the pipe. And I'm also going to, instead of running that straight down, I'm going to run it around the rooftop of the building just to add another level of something going on and there being a purpose there. What I'm doing here is, you can see that the edge sticks out. I didn't do a good job of getting that squared, so I'm just going to keep this flat to the wall piece and try to file it a little more flat. And then we'll put in some filler putty to fill the gap there to make it look as one piece. Now this one, again, it's squared, so I'm going a little harder on this. This one I'm not going to break into pieces off. And if I do, it's easy to put back together. Now on this air conditioner, it's going to be on the roof. So the other reason for going a little bit harder is because I am going to weather this. Right now I'm planning to use a little bit of dry brushing with some acrylic paints, as well as some weathering paint pigments. So those paint pigments and the dry brushing will stand out and highlight any imperfections that you have on the pieces that are standing taller. That's why you want to get this nice and smooth. Alright, that looks pretty good to me. Not sure how well you can see the file, but you can see that I have a lot of sanding particles in there from the plastic shavings. I'm going to clean off my file real quick. These brushes you can get relatively cheap. A couple dollars for a pack of them. I just run it over both directions. Keeps the file fresher longer for you rather than plugging it up. Also good if you have a layout with nice frogs on your switches. Those brushes are really good for cleaning out your frogs.
Good to know.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the building. With this, you're going to want to work in moderations. This one's fast setting, so I should be able to apply this and finish it today. So what I like to do is I like to squeeze the bottom. And I'll take my hobby knife here and I'm just going to slice off a bit of the top. And I'm going to apply that down in this corner here. And just to initially put it on there, it doesn't have to be perfect, but you're slowly going to work it into the area that you want. You can already see that it's settling into there. And again, less is more, you guys. If you put too much on in the beginning, you're just going to wind up having to take it back off and redo it again. If you put too little on, like I just did, you can always grab a little more and just add to it. This stuff does have some play to it. It'll have a working life a little while for you. But the longer it is out, the more it will dry. What I just did on my thumb there is I'm just trying to clean up the edge of that, because the outer corner here is almost to where I'm happy with it. And then when that's done, you, if at all, can barely tell that there's a difference. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to repeat that process on this air conditioner. You'll be able to see it more. I want to fill this line right down here by the electrical power switch. what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the cap back on this tube. We're going to call that good with the filler putty. Again, the first video we spent a lot of time squaring up the building and test fitting it, and that was so we can achieve exactly what we just did. There was very little putty work involved with getting that lined up to where there's no gaps. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my little polishing file here. I'm just going to gently, very, very gently run over this. And that's going to conclude today's video. If you want to see the rest of this building and painting of this building, please hit the subscribe, like, and turn on the notifications so you can be notified of the next volume of this series. In the next subject, we will be doing painting. If you are somebody who is new to the hobby, don't panic. This building is going to be painted with hobby store spray paints. See you guys soon.